Joining me now is Kentucky Congressman Andy Barr, member of the House Financial Services Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. How would you assess what went on last night and your colleague Tom Massey refusing to vote yes?
Well, good morning, Maria. This is what winning looks like. This is what a Republican Congress working with President Trump can achieve when we work together and stay unified. Now, obviously, you mentioned my colleague from Kentucky. All I can say is that my colleague from Kentucky was not with President Trump during the primary. He opposed him in the primary, and he's opposing him now. I was with the president in the primary. I was the first member of the Kentucky delegation to endorse President Trump before the primary, and I'm with him now. And that's what the people of this country and the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky deserve. They deserve members of Congress in the House and the Senate to support this president's agenda, which is going to bring back our country and make America great again.
So what do you want to say to the Committee for a Responsible Budget, Maya McGinnis, who writes this? It is truly unfathomable that when confronted with multi-trillion-dollar deficits and debt climbing toward record highs, lawmakers' response is to pass a budget allowing themselves to add trillions more in debt over the next decade. There's no excuse for that notion to even be entertained, let alone pass on the floor of the House. Budget reconciliation should not add to the deficit, and ideally it should be used to reduce debt.
Well, Maria, the Center for Responsible Budgeting needs to actually look at real economics, not junk economics. They need to actually understand that growth is a major part of deficit reduction. Look, the budget resolution that we passed last night contemplates deficit reduction. We wouldn't have passed the resolution without massive amounts of spending cuts. But the other feature of this budget resolution is that it will unleash massive economic growth. Extending the Trump tax cuts is essential for deficit reduction. We need to grow this economy so fast that what we owe becomes smaller as a percentage of the overall economy. Static scoring is fantasy. And this organization that is engaged in static scoring, and my colleague from Kentucky who says this is going to produce a deficit, they're just flat out wrong. The budget resolution we passed last night is deficit reduction, both because it cuts spending, but also because it unleashes massive economic growth, which is critical to get our debt under control.
Was there a lot of waste around the Medicaid spending? Because, you know, the Democrats are saying, oh, they're cutting into Medicaid, and that's where they're coming up with the offsets. So when you look at mandatory spending, and this is the point that I've been making recently, is some of this quote-unquote mandatory spending not mandatory at all?
No, look, I mean, Medicaid is a big mandatory spending program. But what we need in this country is for the American people to get back to work. Work-capable adults need to get off of the taxpayer rolls, and they need to get into private health insurance, in private employment. This is what Secretary Besson and President Trump are talking about when they say re-privatize the economy. This is good for people who are currently on Medicaid in Kentucky and around the country. We want people to not be on Medicaid. We want them to have good private sector jobs that pay them more and give them better quality private health insurance.
Understood. President Trump also said that Ukrainian President Zelensky has agreed to that tentative rare earth minerals deal and that he could be meeting President Trump at the White House on Friday. Here's the president yesterday. Watch.
We've pretty much negotiated our deal on rare earth and various other things. We'll be looking at that security. You're talking about general security for Ukraine later on. I don't think that's going to be a problem. There are a lot of people that want to do it. And I spoke with Russia about it. They didn't seem to have a problem with it.
Congressman, what I like about this deal is that it certainly allows America to be less reliant on the China supply chain when it comes to rare earth minerals. I spoke with the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, about it on Sunday. Here he is. Watch.
On the Ukraine-Russia side, you're seeing, number one, a reformulation of how the United States provides aid, a partnership with Ukraine economically in their critical minerals, and really reformulating that so that the American people can see a return on this massive investment they've made. That's one. Number two, we go to a ceasefire. Number three, we reformulate how The United States deals with Russia. We saw that first step with President Trump talking to both Putin and Zelensky, and then the further engagement in Riyadh. And then number 4, engagement with our European allies, as you see the President of France and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom coming to Washington this week. And we welcome their ideas for security guarantees and European leadership to take care of Europe's security going forward.
Congressman, let me get your take on this deal as it relates to China, because the president also issued a memorandum. It was America First investment policy, which limits China's access to U.S. capital markets. As part of this America First investment policy, the president wrote last week that it orders the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States to block Chinese investments in sensitive sectors like technology, energy, defense. It also looks into new auditing standards. You're on the House China Select Committee. Tell us what you believe this America First investment policy is doing. Is this just sort of instructions for the major agencies to follow suit in terms of investment policy for America?
Well, this investment policy issued by the Trump administration is exactly the right policy. It's the America First policy. It says that we're going to stop financing the Chinese military-industrial complex, while at the same time we're going to continue to have an open investment environment in this country that will build our country's national security, invite benign investment, positive allied investment into our country, and we will allow investment overseas when it advances American interests. When it does not, we will stop it, we will block it, and we will not allow Americans to finance the rise of Chinese communist interests. But on Ukraine, this is another example of how President Trump is a master and brilliant negotiator. Consider this, especially think about if you are a liberal Democrat or if you are a never Trumper. Consider what the president has achieved in just one agreement negotiated over just a few weeks. He has given the American people access to oil, natural gas, and mineral rights. He has recouped billions of dollars of U.S. war aid. He has decreased our dependence on Chinese critical mineral supply chains, rebuilding America. And get this, he's also ending a bloody war in Europe, and he is deterring Russia from future aggression, all in one agreement. It's absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this deal now for a while. I think it is brilliant. I agree with you. I mean, getting something back for all the hundreds of billions of dollars that the U.S. has sent Ukraine is one thing, but it's also really fitting a need, that we need those rare earth minerals, and we need to be less reliant on the China supply chain, no doubt about it. But back to this America First investment policy, this is not an executive order, right? So we don't know that, in fact, all these agencies are going to do this. I mean, there's limitations on outbound money as well. In other words, an encouragement to U.S. investors not to buy into Chinese stocks on these exchanges, not to fund the expansion of our number one adversary. Is that the next step? Will these agencies see it that way and actually take action?
Yeah, this is why it's so important that I continue to work as the author of the legislation to screen and restrict investment, work with the Treasury Department to codify this executive order, this national security memorandum, to prevent investment and capital from flowing into Chinese entities of national security concern, and stop financing these critical technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, semiconductors, and hypersonics.
That's right.
We need to stop financing China.
Hey, Congressman, are you going to run for Mitch McConnell's seat since he's leaving the Senate?
I'm getting a ton of encouragement from MAGA supporters around this country. Kentucky needs a senator that will support President Trump in this agenda.
That sounds like a yes. We're going to be watching your work, sir. Good to see you this morning, Congressman. Thank you. Congressman Andy Barr
Thank you.
at the Capitol. We'll be right back.